All right, we're live. Today we've got Mr. John Paul Bourgeois. I
That's
know
right.
I probably pronounced that more John. I tried to let it's Jean Paul. That's right.
You did a good job for your first time saying it on a podcast out loud in a mic. That's not too bad, Bo.
Yeah, I mean I say it right every time in my head, but then it
Yeah.
came out wrong again. Well,
You
man, what's
wouldn't
been going on?
you wouldn't be the first, my friend, which is why a lot of folks just call me Chef or they call me JP. But Jean Paul works pretty good too, man. I'm good, man. I'm excited that episode 1 of season 3 of Duck Camp Dinners is finally out, and there's a few more episodes that are fine tuned and so on. Then we're kind of editing the last episode right now of 1 of 6. And so, at this point, I've seen them so many times, I forget that other people haven't.
Mhm.
I tell you what, man, it's a doozy of a season. All of them are 44 minutes long, which is almost twice as long as any other episode that we've done. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's one of those changes that we made that I was really happy to do. So just trying to stay busy with rolling season 3 out and then already working on season 4 as we speak.
Yeah, I mean I guess by the time season 3 gets finished coming out, it'll be teal season, so it'll be time to rock and roll again.
Yeah, exactly right. And as you might have seen in season 3 of episode 1, we hunted early teal season in Louisiana. But I am completely out of teal season this year because I have my second baby coming September 12th. And so I'm taking all of September off and planning for that instead.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay.
Gotta get ready for the real season.
Yeah, I knew you had
November
one,
season.
so that'll change things up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. So usually like Duck Camp Dinners or any shows like that are like the previous seasons where they're like 20 minutes or however long. Usually I'll just pop them on while I'm eating dinner or something. Last night I was getting ready to watch it. And I saw how long it was. I was like, whoa, I gotta commit a little time here.
Mhm.
Wait till the baby goes to sleep to watch this one. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we knew that would come into play with some folks. We just felt that, because it premieres on Waypoint TV, it even needed to be a 30-minute show or an hour-long show. But what that really means is 22 minutes or 44 minutes. And we just feel like we made the show under this concept that we really wanted to tell a story. And 22 minutes makes it really hard to do a hunt, a cook, and any type of storytelling. So now we get to have more hunting, more cooking, more storytelling in a 44. And I feel like that's something definitely that we're aiming for season 4 is a 44 minutes. So season 3 having that 44, we knew it'd be a commitment from folks, but I think what people wanted was more Duck Camp Dinners, and this is our way of doing it without creating 12 episodes. Create 6 44-minute ones.
yeah, I mean, it basically comes out. I mean, if you can't watch it all in one sitting, it basically gives you 12 episodes if you want to break it in half. So,
Yeah,
I agree. I mean, I think that's what you nailed it on those 3 things. I mean, that's what people want to see. And whenever you start trying to condense it to that 22-minute format, like you lose some of that. And I think that's what y'all do. I think that's like some of the success with it is like, that's what people want. You get to see the hanging out part. You get to see the cooking part. You get to see the hunting part without any of those suffering. So, I mean, that's been my big draw to it since the first one. I bet I've watched the first 2 seasons 10 times.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I tell you this, Austin, is that I appreciate that. And I do. I say this like honestly with so much genuineness because I know it matters that funding the show matters and the distribution matters, but honestly, like people watching and liking and writing emails, like and commenting on the show, it's there's not a lot of ways that we can show people how people respond to the show. Like I can send you literally 1,000 emails sent from my Squarespace account, that's how people kind of access me in a lot of ways in my email. And from all over the world, like stories, paragraphs of emails telling why they love Duck Camp Dinners. Like having people watch it and enjoy it over and over, like you just said, is incredibly meaningful, not just to me, but to the success of this show. Like it is not successful without people watching it, liking it, commenting on it, because it's a metric that we can measure and show that, hey, there is something here. There is something special about it. There is something that resonates with people, whether you're from Louisiana or not, whether you hunt ducks or not. And it's something that we can show to other people to say, this is why we should distribute it here, or this is why we need your help being a brand partner here, because you will get people that see this show. And it's, anyways, it's just so incredibly important to have people, again, like watch it. Of course, you would think that, but just that are sharing their experience with it, that are engaging with it in different ways, whether that be Waypoint, YouTube, Amazon Prime now, so thank you for that.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and I kind of was reading a little bit, it was an article from somewhere, I'm not sure, this morning, but how did it all come to be? I mean, I know that was, that's your hunting camp and those are your buddies, but where did the idea to say, all right, look, we're about to get serious and actually film this and put out a show?
Well, the genesis of it came from this idea that I wanted to memorialize this camp and never forget not just the camp, but the people and the interactions there. Everybody that goes to that camp, that's why there's not a lot of new people that go to that camp, because if you're invited to it, you go. Like it's a special place for that reason. A lot of it has to do that we're all really good friends and have been for 2 decades, most of us, if not longer. And personally, selfishly, I wanted to memorialize it. So, I don't know how much interactions y'all have with hurricanes, but Louisianians have a lot of them. And that's a little floating camp. And whenever a hurricane comes, it's not just so easy to go hook up a boat to it and pull it to a harbor. It's out there. It even survives or it doesn't. And any hurricane season could wipe that camp into the marsh and we never see it again. No doubt. Or at least destroy it to its foundation to where we'd have to rebuild it. And I just felt the need to document it and document the friendships that we have there, the conversations, the jokes, the cooks, the hunts, all of it. The way the show kind of came to be, well, we didn't have any idea. When we started filming this, we filmed 5 straight days, basically like 14 hours a day for 5 days. And that's why we created the first season of 6 episodes in that first season. And I remember talking to Daniel, the cameraman, and Dylan Farrell, who now works as the marketing director for Shin Gear. And I said, just film as much as we can. I don't know what this is going to look like in the edit. We'll figure that out. And at first, that show was supposed to be like 8 minutes long and it'd be on YouTube. And we just kind of looked at all the edit, all the footage at the end and said, we have way more than 8 minutes an episode. Let's just make the show that we want to make. And then from that, we said, okay, well, we don't want it to be like any other duck hunting show. So let's take all the duck hunting shows that we like and don't like and say, this is what we want from that and don't want from that. Being a culinary guy and my expertise is not in duck hunting, it's in cooking. That's something that I wanted to show, because in Louisiana, we cook, not just professionally, but just in the garage, outside, during crawfish season, at the hunting and fishing camps. Like, we all cook. And so I thought that was pretty neat, that especially the males have all this like really great kind of cooking background. So that was something I wanted to show. And then there was all this conservation stuff that Louisiana has historically dealt with. from saltwater intrusion to hurricanes to nutria-rats to water lilies to apple snails to now Asian carp kind of running those bayous and so on. And so that's a little bit of that we wanted to do. So the show developed in kind of different ways, but really the genesis of it was just, let's just document it. And if we only make one season, then fine. We'll always have it to go back and remember. And that was really the reason why I wanted to make it, is just so I can always have a memory of it.
That's what makes it, like, that's what has stood out to me with it on is, we're being in Mississippi, like, we're almost like y'all's cousins from Louisiana, right? Like, there's so much similar influence from Louisiana here in Mississippi with the cooking, the hanging out at the camps. Like I told Bo on the way, like, a couple of days ago when we first started setting this up, like, the interactions with Jay and Juice and you, like, everybody kind of has their role in camp, right? Like, everybody pulls some weight, everybody cooks, but somebody's goofing on somebody else and somebody's doing most of the cooking, and somebody, like, that resonates. And especially for here, because that's the way our camps are, whether it's turkey camp or deer camp, or if we go to our buddy's duck camp, like, it's just it feels like you can see it because you're just used to hanging out with that same type people. It's the same interactions.
Yeah.
And I think everybody, everybody's got that in their camp. They got their guy that cooks. They got their Jay and their Juice, and they're just people that hang out and rib each other. And, that, to me, that's what I like, that side of it, because whenever there's not hunting season going on, like I was saying before, that gives me a glimpse back into, okay, well, this is what's coming up. We're going to get to hang out with everybody. And that's one of the most memorable parts of it, is just hanging out with the group.
Yeah, I think that's like we've talked about it before with different shows, but same with this one. Is like, to be honest, I could care less about watching the hunting aspect. It's the being at the camp, because it makes you feel like, and I guess you have to kind of know what it's like to feel this, but you just feel like you're at the camp. So it gives you that feeling. Like, I don't look forward to going to the camp to go sit in the woods. I look forward to the camp to go hang out, drink a beer, cook some food, and the show kind of does it perfect on showing that.
I think y'all both nailed it, and we just hear that from I kid you not, from people all over the world, that they may have a salmon camp that them and their buddies go to every spring, and they see themselves in that, like, they have the same people. It just doesn't matter where you're at in the world, what you're pursuing. If you pursue something and have a group of friends that do that together once a year, once a month, once a week, it doesn't matter if you're a duck hunter or know anything about Louisiana. You kind of see yourself in this camp, and we didn't know that was going to happen. Like, I didn't think about that other people would resonate in that way. And it was very telling to me, like, oh God, like, just think about it. Like, there's this duck camp dinners. What if you did have a turkey camp dinner and you went and did this in other turkey camps around the country in the same sort of way? And it kind of gives you this idea of, like, what do different spinoffs look like in duck camp dinners? What are, like, whether that's trout fishing in the Chesapeake area or Alaska, or maybe it's fly fishing in the Keys or lobster diving, like all those things, and makes you, because you see everybody has people that spend their time in the outdoors typically have a similar story with each other, like what we have. And to be honest, like, we get a lot of women that write in that say, thank you for this show. I finally know what my husband does on the weekends. And it's so fun to see that, like, women who have nothing to do with hunting, or especially duck hunting, they're watching this show for the cooking aspect, the entertainment aspect, and also this, because their husband watches it for the reason y'all watch it, but they're getting a completely different thing out of it. And we don't have to shoot a duck in the whole episode, in any episode, for it to be entertaining. And that's because we have a good group of friends that have a good chemistry together, and we all just like to cook. And so we figure, if, as y'all know, like, the hunting may be terrible, but we're going to eat good typically. And I know you Mississippi boys look at it the same way. I don't know about everybody else, but I know if even if the hunting's not great, we're going to eat good.
That's how we plan it out. It's like, all right, so-and-so's got breakfast, so-and-so's got lunch, so-and-so's got supper. And it's just like, you're cooking supper one night, I'll cook it the next night. Yeah, it's just that's how we plan out our get-togethers is who's cooking what and at what time are you cooking. You bring the stuff you need to cook, and we'll all have what we need when we get there.
So in like a typical duck season, not filming aside, but do y'all go out there like as much as you can throughout the season, or do y'all go out there basically for like, all right, here's the week we're all going to go, and then that's kind of it?
No, we go every weekend.
Okay.
Typically. We try not to hunt during the week and let the leases rest. So we'll hunt Saturday and Sunday. And, I don't own the lease and I don't own the camp. That's my best friend, Jay Scheck-Snyder and Ryan Blakely. And they work in oil and gas in Louisiana. And so sometimes they'll take clients out on Wednesdays or Thursday mornings just for like day hunts, but they won't typically stay at the camp. But really there's 9 beds and 2 sofas. So typically like you can sleep 11 people if you want in that camp. Typically we don't have people sleeping I say that. There's a couple guys that like sleeping on the couches, whether there's a bed open or not. There's always those guys. Mm-hmm. And so typically there's around 8 or 9 people at the camp at one time, and we'll hunt like 3 different blinds. Depending on how the leases are productive, we'll split up however that looks. But usually like 3 to a blind, usually 9 people to the camp. And those 9 people typically don't change. They may change, 1 or 2 may change because somebody has a birthday party to go to on Saturday or something like that. And so somebody else will come in, but typically that group stays pretty close throughout the year.
I'll tell you, mentioning Jay, that's how I knew that we would fit in, is how much he loves Vienna sausages, and he always talks about them on the show. The Little Debbie and Vienna sausage recipes resonate. Not recipes, just about them eating those 2 things resonates hard. Yeah. I was thinking that last night when I was watching it. I was like, now they just need to, and I'm sure they probably know this trick, but get your mustard sardines and your hot sauce sardines so you can mix the 2 together, and then you have mustard and hot sauce in your sardines.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'll leave that to Jay to figure out.
Yeah, this is not for you. This is just for you to relay to him. This was below you. This was just for the Vienna crowd.
I used to love Vienna sausages, but as a kid, I ate too many, got sick from them, and then I haven't eaten them since. And just there's something about the way Jay eats them that like really bothers me. It's like he doesn't chew them. He eats them like an oyster, right? Yeah. Like you almost just press them on top of your mouth and you swallow them. And it just seeing that little cylindrical thing go into his mouth, it really weirds me out. And but that story of Armor brand sending him a gift for 15% off.
I was rolling last night when that happened. When they said that last night, I was rolling. I thought that was hilarious.
That's a true story, man. They somehow, I think they got in contact with him through Instagram, and he sent him his address, and they sent him an envelope with a cutout coupon for 15% off of whatever. And
that's a heck of a sponsorship.
Yeah, now look, I was thinking that. That's what I was thinking last night. I said, man, whoever, as many times as Little Debbie's talked about in all the different hunting shows out there, like that's got to be the most coveted sponsorship out there. Like whoever lands Little Debbie finally, that's going to be like the biggest thing, is who can finally get Little Debbie on board.
Yeah, I think they figured it out. They're kind of like Yeti, that they don't need anybody.
Everybody just loves it.
Anything. They just got the whole market sewed up.
Everybody's fighting to try to get Little Debbie.
Well, so going back to like the cooking and everything, what kind of got you into, I mean, you're from Louisiana, so obviously cooking's always been a part of your life, but what made you want to make it a career and really become a professional?
Yeah. I mean, I was always good at it, even as a little boy when I was started cooking with my parents. I just always had an interest in it, in the kitchen. outside with my dad cooking or inside with my mom on the week. So my mom like cooked every day on the weekdays. My dad cooked on the weekends. I rarely, outside of traveling for my sister's sports teams, I rarely remember like a meal on the road or a boxed meal and so on. And yeah, like you said, I grew up in a culture that was extremely rich in good food and people cooking from scratch. That certainly played a part. But really, like in college, when I thought about the things I was good at, and enjoyed, it was cooking. And so I went right to culinary school. There really wasn't another option for me because one, I knew I was good at it, and two, I enjoyed it. And so why not get paid for things that you're good at and enjoy? But certainly did not see this coming in terms of where my career is now. So it's always been a part of my life. And I love the camaraderie around the kitchen as well, and leading teams of cooks to accomplish a goal. And that goal every day was just to serve guests as best as we can, not just like delicious food, but incredible hospitality. I'm a big believer that, you can take the business ideals of hospitality and inject them into any business we have, whether you're a doctor, you're an accountant, you're a salesman. And, the kind of rule that I go by when any interaction I have with folks is like, I want them feeling better when they left than they did when they came in, whether that be a restaurant or a sales job or just an interaction with me. I want those folks feeling better than they did when they came in. If you can accomplish that in your life, no matter what your business is, you've won already. You've made an impact on people's lives in a positive way. As a sales point of view, it's probably going to get you a sale. As a restaurant point of view, those people are probably going to come back and visit your restaurant if you left them in a better place than when they left. And then my interactions with my 2.5-year-old is through that same prison. Like when he comes, sees me and needs something from me, is he leaving better than he did when he came in? It trickles into every part of my life. And that's what I learned. I was, I didn't need to go to culinary school to learn how to cook. I had that pretty good. Again, this is something God gave me and gave me interest in and gave me talent in from a very young age. I'm not too proud to say that. That's the truth. What I did learn about being a chef, working in restaurants, working with teams, interacting with people daily, back of house, front of house, guests, is that the power of hospitality can drive your message no matter what your profession is, as long as you can treat people with respect and dignity and, get them with a smile. Like it'll take you a long way. It's how I've been able to produce duck cam dinners for 3 seasons. Aside from 5 years ago, I didn't have any connection into the outdoor world. I had no ambitions of being part of the meat eater team during that point in my life, or working with brands like Beretta or Boss Shot Shells or Mossy Oak or Shin Gear. Like none of that. I didn't have connection to any of that. It was my expertise in food and cooking that led me to create this show, that then led me to have more conversations with these brands about food and about how food can be transformative for your brand. Like I've said it for a long time. It's like Boss Shot Shells, they pound that cavity, static shock, bird falls to the ground. Now what? Well, hopefully we're all cooking it. And that's where I come into play. And it's just 50% of the story that most of these brands have never told. And it's the reason why we should be all hunting. Maybe not all of us hunt for those reasons, but in my opinion, it should be the reason why we go out into the field. And so the fact that we, until recently, haven't been food for duck camp dinners is 50% of that show. There's certainly been shows before me that had food kind of connections, but they've always been like the last 2 minutes. The last 3 minutes. And I thought if the reason why we're to hunt, if at least half of that was to go out and feed our families, then if we're going to make a show about that, then half of that should be about food. That's kind of, again, like, it's all intertwined, but this all came to my life through food and cooking, and being able to just, have that conversation through a number of different kind of
Yeah.
brands and brand awareness.
That's what I mean. Remembering back, that's what, like, Meat Eater. You mentioned that. I mean, they were kind of some of the first ones I remember really kind of focusing on the cooking side. Whenever, like, in the early days of the show, like, that was one of the things that really drew me to that show. Whenever it came on, was like, you just didn't see it. Everything wasn't structured that way originally. And then you saw, like, you had other shows that started focusing more on the campside and hanging out and the camaraderie aspect of it. So I'm really glad that all those things have kind of built where they are to get to where y'all are today, where you do have a good mix of all the aspects of it, where you get a full comprehensive picture of it. And it's just not just a duck hunt, just a deer hunt, just a
Yeah.
turkey hunt.
Yeah, look, I mean, Meat Eater, you're right. Steve, when I saw Steve's show early on, I forget if it's Outdoor or Sportsman or
Yeah,
whatever.
whichever one it started on
Whatever one
years
it was
ago.
on,
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
that dude gets it. Not
yeah,
just get it from a food point of view, but from a content point of view of, like, what it means to be a responsible hunter. I will say that's changed throughout the years, and that's from other pressures in
right,
their world. You just don't see the same cooking
right.
time
Mm-hmm.
devoted, and that's because hunters are saying we want more hunting and less cooking, probably less things to sell on the site than, like, let's not kid ourselves. Like, hunting pays the bills for Meat Eater. Well,
Mhm.
cooking pays the bills for me, and that's just the natural kind of, again, the gift that I was given. So I try to use that as a Trojan horse through Duck Camp Dinners to get people cooking more, or maybe educated on more authentic Cajun recipes, or least popular, or maybe not as popular Cajun recipes. Like, everybody knows the gumbos and the jambalayas, but do they know the sauce pecans, the fricassees, the chicken stews, and all those, the roux peas of the world? No. And so that's what we've been able. So again, um, learn, like, Steve was a big inspiration in the early years, but he's all, love those guys, but they were also an inspiration in terms of this, where they're at now, in the sense, like, I need to make sure I keep cooking in this show and keep food present in this show, because I don't want it to just turn into, like, all right, well, people want to see more hunting. That's what we think. I don't know. I don't necessarily agree with that. And I think there's a large enough group of people now that want more out of their outdoor shows, want more connectivity and kind of tangible things they can walk away with, from a show. And hopefully, like, that's, like, we always write one or two recipes for every show that get posted, because we want you to walk away with something, not just entertainment for that hour, but something you can bring back to your family with what's being provided out of your community or your freezer, to better use that tangibly for your people with that recipe, and so on.
Yeah, I think duck's the perfect way to, or at least the best thing, in my opinion, to do that with too, is because duck's kind of easy to mess up, and you give so many different options and so many different techniques on that show that kind of opens people's eyes to, even if they do tune in just to watch the duck hunting and they duck hunt, but they just breast their ducks out and then make them into, wrap them in bacon or whatever. Well, it kind of opens their eyes to all the other options that you can do with it.
Yeah, certainly. There's a lot of people that message me and say, what else can I do with duck, other than duck poppers? What else can I do other than meatloaf or burgers with my deer grind, and so on? I have those same issues as everybody else. I'm constantly looking at all the deer meat in my freezer, all the grind. I'm like, all right, I love burger, but what else can I do? Duck breasts. If for some reason I just have breasts, and as I've made all my legs into stock, what can I do with these breasts that are actually meaningful and that can feed my family, and so on? So, it's a creative exercise for me as well. Every time I'm into that freezer, there's almost no recipe that I make for my family that is the same as the one I made the night before, even if I'm using the same meat. Even if I'm making burgers again, I may kind of switch it up. Maybe I'm making Salisbury steak kind of thing, or like, like with gravy and smothered in onions and mashed potatoes and so on. Same grind, same patty, same thing, but I'm just kind of doing it in a different way. But, I think that's the other part of the show is like, we're all the same. I mean, my food might be different from somebody else's food that may be hunting in South Dakota. That's fine and dandy, but I still run into the same issues of like, God, I'm tired of eating this. I'm tired of eating that. Let's just kind of be playful. And my job is to say, like, you can be playful or more imaginative with what you're cooking. And here's one example. A lot of those things that I cook on the show are the first time, that I make them that way. There's, I would say, at least one recipe an episode I'm like, I've never done this before, but we'll see how it turns out, kind of thing. And that's okay. Like, even if I don't nail it, right? And I think that's the truth behind it, is that we rarely nail what we want to cook the first time. Like anything that we become good at, whether it's podcasting or cooking, reps matter. How many times you do it matter. Practice makes perfect. No, perfect practice makes perfect. Like, it's reps, baby. Like, that's what makes us good at things in life.
Well, the best way to figure that stuff out is experimenting, like you're talking about. And the other good thing that you show on the show is kind of what goes with what, because somebody that's not experienced in the kitchen, they might not can say like, oh, well, we need fat in this recipe to pull something together, and they can't just throw ingredients together and make something like you can, but then you're able to show it on the show, and somebody might be sitting at their camp and saying, well, I've got those 5 ingredients. Well, here's how I can blend them up and make something that works.
Certainly. And you've heard me say this in earlier seasons, and it's something that chefs have been going by since the 70s, longer than that, but the saying has been around since about the 70s. And it's something for every hunter in every walk of life and every part of the world to realize, is that if it grows together, it goes together. And so duck and turnips, duck and citrus, duck and apples, all those things are always going to go together because they come into season together. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's something, whether that's scientific truth or just theoretical truth, there is a truth to that. And for some reason, when we taste duck, the idea of apples and like this fall sweetness, kind of the fall spices that you taste in apple pie, just really go well with duck. And you see this in the French culture with duck à l'orange, the classic way, and the camp way that we make it in season 1, the camp style duck à l'orange. Like, that's pulled from a classic French dish that was developed 300 years ago. And they put it together because when they started seeing ducks come into different parts of the countryside of France, they realized that citrus came in together at the same time. And they were like, whoa, both of these things are in season. We should cook them together. And it turns out they go well together. And so I would say I'm not an expert in, the things that are popping up in the fall and winter months in the Pacific Northwest. But if you're going to shoot a white-tailed deer and there's some mushrooms that are growing underneath some pine straw, good possibility those things are going to go perfectly together at that time of year, and so on. So for all those cooks, whether you hunt or not, just think about the seasons. Do a quick little Google search. I do it all the time when I'm traveling. If I'm in a certain area and I'm going to the grocery store even, I'm saying like, okay, like what's in season in November in Arkansas? And you'll find some information. It'll actually give you good intel. Like if you're going to the grocery store, those things are going to be typically even better in the grocery stores you would even find in the wild. If you're buying corn in the winter in Louisiana, the corn's not going to be that good. Corn is good in the summer, right? No matter where you live. Anyways, there's a lot of truth to if it grows together, goes together. and just combining ingredients, even if you thought, never thought of that before. The earth, nature is telling you that they go together, guys. Just put it there,
Yeah.
throw it in the
Yeah.
pot if you need to.
Well, I've been thinking about this question since you mentioned your 2.5-year-old, and I've got a 2.5-year-old as well, and Austin's is 4. What's the go-to recipe have you figured out for? Does your it's your son, right?
Yes.
Does he like duck? I mean, what's the go-to there?
He loves duck. He loves duck and gumbos. He wants to. I like, because a lot of Cajun recipes, when it comes to wild game, it's cooked till it's fallen off the bone. So the meat becomes very soft and supple. And with a gumbo, there's this, a robust gravy that he can put over rice and he could eat with a spoon. So he loves things like that. We started very early on feeding him everything that we eat. Like he doesn't eat anything that we don't. We don't cook him separate meals. So sometimes that means he doesn't eat. Sometimes it means he eats everything.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've learned recently is that like he'll crush 2 avocados in a sitting if he needs. And if he's being finicky with a little piece of food that he usually eats, we'll put the avocado on the plate with it. He'll eat the avocado, and it seems to like engage his hunger. Yes. And he's like, "Oh, I can eat that and eat that." Then he goes and eats the other thing. We had, deer meat tacos, basically, loose meat tacos like mom and dad used to cook. We do taco salads a lot at the house, but we roll him up with some sour cream and taco meat and a tortilla, and he's crushing that. So obviously, as you know, both being dads, 1, 4, 1, 2.5, there's really no telling what they're going to like and dislike over the course of that day. But he seems to really like the soft, falling off the bone duck gumbos, duck stews type of things. Loves boiled crawfish, which I'm happy about. But really, like the little trick that we learned for all those dads listening is like, put something he's going to like on the plate with something that he may be finicky with at the time. And that might help him kind of transition from that avocado to whatever it is on that plate. That seemed to be working for us, at least over the last couple of weeks. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, completely agree. We do that. You have to just kind of walk your way into it. Like, if she doesn't want to eat, like, we give her something that she does like to go along with it. And it's like you said, you're just going to spur that appetite. And once you get her eating, she'll eat everything.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is when they're that young, they don't have time to, like, duck is the main thing too. It's like people get in their head that it's just, I don't know if you want to say gamey or whatever. I guess they've had it badly cooked or whatever, but she's 2.5. She hadn't had time yet. So she loves duck too. She loves goose. I cooked some Canada goose last year that I killed in Nebraska. Brought it home, cooked it up. She loved that. Her mom does not whatsoever. But I'm like, I know it's just. I tell her mom, like, I know it's just in your head. You've had too many people telling you that it's not that good.
Yeah, it's how stuff's presented, and especially at that age. I think if all you do is French fries and chicken nuggets, and that's what's just drilled in their head, they like it. Well, who doesn't like it? Like, it just gets drilled in their head that they like. And then if you make an issue out of the other stuff, there's a reason to question it. Mm-hmm. There's a reason why I don't want to eat it. And so I think, like, normalizing just, hey, we eat everything here. We're cooking one meal. We're all eating the same thing. Like, I think that helps in that. And just like, but then knowing the same trick, like you just said, like, having never met one another, talked to one another, independently came up with the same thing. Oh, well, let's just give a little bit of something to walk them into eating the rest of it. So yeah, no, I think so. Speaking of duck, I got to say this. I'll forget it if I don't say it now, but I started making your duck gumbo recipe a couple years ago after the season came out. And so every year, my wife's family has a place on the Mississippi coast. So every year, Thanksgiving, we go down there. And for Thanksgiving, we've started doing like a kind of non-traditional Thanksgiving meal, or I'll boil shrimp, or this year I was going to cook gumbo. So we load up, we take everything down there, got pots and, everything I need to make it with. And my wife was grabbing the meat out of the freezer. Well, she didn't grab the pack of the vacuum seal pack of duck breast. She grabbed some like deer steaks that were cubed up, but they weren't labeled and she didn't know what they were. So we get down there and I'm like, well, we can use this. Like it'll still be like, we'll just use this instead of the duck, because the gumbo will just be a little bit different. It's like, no, we've told everybody it was going to be duck gumbo. You got to get duck gumbo. So sitting there and I was like, what am I going to do? I was like, you know what? There's a good grocery store in town. I was like, I'm just going to go down there and see if they have some duck breast. So sure enough, go down there. They had some farm raised duck breast in there, which one is probably the most expensive meat I've ever bought. Like it was crazy how expensive 2 little duck breasts were. And boy, the difference between wild duck breast and a farm raised duck breast. That was, gosh, it was night and day different on how that gumbo turned out. Like the flavor wasn't there. It was, you didn't have that, well, quote, gamey flavor or whatever. Like you didn't have flavor. It was just bland.
Yeah. Oh, certainly if you're used to eating wild duck and then switch something up like that. Yeah. I mean, I'm one of those chefs. I was saying this the other day to someone. It's like, I don't consider myself a wild game chef. It's a lot of what I cook because I have it. But I am I love farm raised duck. Now I approach it completely different than I do wild game because it's not an apples to apples comparison. I would only use back legs in a gumbo of farm raised duck, where I'd use the whole thing in a gumbo if it was wild duck.
Right.
And there's a number of different things like that, but there are really great, and you're right, duck meat is expensive, especially when you're getting it from a grocery store.
That was the first time I'd ever bought it from a grocery store. And so, but then that turned out to be a good selling point too, because it was like, hey, whenever I go on these duck hunts, like this is how much all this duck meat's actually, this is the equivalent of if I had to go get it at the store, this is the difference.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's completely different thing. It's maybe has more in common with chicken than it does actually wild duck, farm raised ducks. But yeah, I mean, look, you're certainly going to get much more mild flavor out of farm raised, especially that long cooking process where you're getting everything from it. So I can see how that would be. That would be next time. Just make a wild game gumbo. Call it that.
That's what I was gonna do, but it was Thanksgiving morning. That's when we realized what we had, and it was like, no, you've already told everybody it's gonna be this. I'm like, well, where do you just go grab some duck all of a sudden on Thanksgiving morning? I was like, well, I'm gonna run down the store and just happen to see if they have any, and they did. I dug around and found some.
What kind of sausage did you use for it?
It was an andouille from, I'm trying to remember if it was that same, I think it was from a place up here that makes it. There's a place here in Meridian that makes some andouille that, I can't remember what the connection is. It's like a family.
Yeah.
Somebody has somebody in Louisiana and they bring it back and forth type deal. So,
for me, that's always the big differential kind of thing in gumbos with different people. Is like, how good of sausage can you get? Because if you have a really great sausage, there's not a lot of you don't need to over season that gumbo with a great sausage. That sausage should be packing enough punch to where okay, I can get by with salt, pepper, a little hot sauce here and there. Maybe I want to add some granulated garlic, but that sausage should be, in my opinion, really kind of injecting itself into that gumbo in a way to where you're getting a really well-seasoned gumbo without even salt and pepper in it yet.
The way you cook and kind of the way that style of cooking goes, that's what we like to do, just kind of whole ingredients, let things blend together. We don't season stuff real heavy, because if you have the right ingredients and it all is able to kind of mix, a lot of times you don't need anything other than salt and pepper and some garlic. That's what I like the most about that kind of cooking, is that it all just kind of helps build on itself, and you don't have to have a super heavy seasoned, super salty meal at the end of it.
I'll tell you what, talking about going back to the sausage though, I can't remember what episode. I was watching an episode the other day, getting ready for the new season to come out. And I have never in my life seen sausage that was ground the way the sausage y'all were using was. It was the andouille, so I guess y'all were probably making gumbo, but it was such thick pieces in there. I had never in my life seen that. There's nowhere around here that you can buy anything similar to that.
Yeah, look, I mean, true andouille is like the old school Cajun andouille is almost like whole chunks of pork
Mm-hmm.
shoulder that's been seasoned, and it's bound with some ground pork, and then stuffed into that casing. Like a French andouille casing is about this round, is about, I don't know, 3 inches in diameter, and is very odd shaped. It's like different because they hand stuffed it. They hand stuffed it with all this other stuff, um, and the when it kind of translated into when it kind of translated into um, the French Acadians, they started using the same methods, but using just like shoulder instead. And so when you start to when you cut open that andouille and then you half it instead of keeping it round, if you keep it round, it'll kind of stay intact if you just float it in the gumbo. But if you brown it, that all comes out and it becomes these like larger chunks. One thing that somebody did the other day that I saw, and I was eating a gumbo and I was like, golly, this is good, man. I didn't never, it just tasted different. It was in a really good way. They said what they do is they take Jimmy Dean sausage in the chub that without the sage, the breakfast sausage without the sage, and they'll use whole andouille or smoked sausage to float in the gumbo, but they'll brown that breakfast sausage as like a separate sausage component for their gumbo. And like you can't taste it at all in there. It's just like one chub for like a pot of
Yeah.
10-quart pot of gumbo. But it really was like, it was nice. It was a nice little texture thing in the gumbo. It had a nice background of flavor that Jimmy Dean sausage. And I don't even like Jimmy Dean breakfast sausage, but in that gumbo, it turned it enough different to be like, oh, it made me recognize like this is different. This is good. Sometimes that's what it takes. Just kind of thinking out the box like that.
Yeah. So I've just been kind of thinking about this, getting away from cooking for a little bit, going back to being a dad and everything. How are you balancing? Because I struggle with this a lot, and I'm sure you do too, Austin. Like, how you balance? I know you want to spend as much time hunting as you can, and then you've got obligations now with the show and with your cooking and everything, with also being at home with your kids as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I mean, I devote 90% of my hunting, and hunting comes in the 60 days of duck season, right? And in those 60 days, I might go shoot a whitetail or two to fill the freezer, but rare. Like may do a turkey hunt or 2 turkey hunts in the spring, but I just don't chase anything else like I chase ducks. So as somebody who loves it, like I think my wife's awesome. She understands it. Those 60 days, whether I'm making duck camp dinners or not, like I'm going to be out duck hunting.
Yeah.
The other 300 days out of the year, like I'm essentially a stay-at-home dad outside of, fly here for 2 days, do an event, fly somewhere else, do some social media stuff, fly somewhere else, do a private dinner. All those pay bills too. Like duck camp dinners is a part of my livelihood. It's a show that I love. I would be duck hunting whether I made duck camp dinners or not. But the fact that now I can make somewhat of a business off of it and work with brands that help support this habit of mine, it makes those 60 days a lot more tolerable. Again, like I work from home. I'm doing this podcast from home. I'm going to go eat lunch after this, and I'm going to get right back to work from here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm totally accessible to my son the majority of the days out of the year. So, that's the balance act. Is not everything has to be perfectly in balance at all parts of the year. And, I think that's part of a healthy household is understanding where each other's passions lie, and that we need to better exercise those passions when those times come. And luckily, mine's only 60 days long. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's for anybody, whether it's hunting or whatever, and you don't understand it until you become a dad. It's kind of a struggle. I mean, because even if you are 100% at home when you're at home, but you're 100% hunting when you're hunting, it's still. I mean, you go to the deer camp for 2 days, and you're like, man, I kind of want to get back to my kid. So
yeah,
it's different. It's definitely different when you have a kid.
no doubt. I mean, Austin, your son or daughter
Daughter.
is 4 years old. Is she gonna start coming out like right around? I've understood around 4 and 5 is
Yeah.
when some dads or women or moms bring their kids out to hunt. What's your story on that?
Yeah, I am expecting her to go deer hunting with me some this year. We hadn't pushed it before now. Just kind of waiting for her to get old enough to kind of where she wanted to go with me type deal, and also getting her old enough where she'd be quiet and that sort of thing. So, yeah, no, we got big plans on that. Actually, last night I was out in the backyard shooting my bow. She was standing out there with me. She loves holding the binoculars and looking through the binoculars. So she's starting to get to where she really understands it. Like, we'll ride out. We got a place where we hunt. We got cows and stuff out there, so we'll take her out there and let her see everything, walk around, and every time we go, she's looking for the turkeys. She wants to know where the turkeys are. She wants to go out and see where are the deer. She wants to ride on the Ranger and see them. And so yeah, she's getting to that point. Like, I think this is going to be her year. We'll do it a time or two, see kind of how it goes, see how she likes it. I think she'll. I'm sure that means that we'll probably sit around almost dark a few times and slip into a box stand somewhere, and just easy to get into and out of, and let her watch a few does, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, no, I'm fired up for it. Like, I'm excited. We talked the last podcast we did with Daniel Bard. He was talking about his kids getting to the age to do that, and that was my growing up. I got a younger brother growing up with my dad. Like, we come from a hunting family, so like even now, like our deer camp, duck camp, whatever, it's family. Like, it's cousins, it's brothers, it's dads and uncles. So, I'm looking forward to be able to take that next step of having them involved with it. It would be fun having them in camp.
yeah.
So when's the how old do you have to be to go to the duck camp?
Oh, Jay and some other guys like Sean Piku and Jay, they're bringing their kids now, but they don't really come when we go. They go kind of separate, like dad and kid trips, which is probably the better thing, because in the end, like, it is good to have, like, that's my boys, that's my friends. I have other friends outside of the duck camp, but it's hard to find them like those guys. Those are the people if I'm going to spend my time away from home, and like, those are the people I want to spend it with.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important that you still have that time, like adults with adults, guys, however your camp looks, to spend. And then, as your kids get older and they start, acclimating to what an adult camp can look like, as opposed to just having you and your boy or another dad with their sons, so they can that's the way I see it, at least. So how old do you have to be? Old enough to not go tell your mom what's been said, I guess.
That's right. Yeah.
Boy, that was the threat. I don't know if that was the way you growing up, but that was a threat with us. I remember my dad told my brother 100 times, "If you tell your mom that happened, you're never coming back out here."
These are just the truths about it. Like, we don't need to, like, boys will be boys,
Yep.
whether they're 40 or whether they're 12. And that's what I've learned just turning 40 in May and seeing my son be 2.5. I'm like, he sure is a boy, It's, I don't think I don't think that ever really changes with us. So, but again, just like from a mental health point of view, it's just good to go out with your friends and have that freedom. In a lot of ways, I still feel like I'm 25, and my mind still says you can go out and do what every 21 and 25-year-old does. Now, at 2:00 in the morning. Some of those nights I'm like starting to question those decisions, but that's the name of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I battle with it all the time. With I always like go with the guys somewhere, go on a fishing trip, something. When that Monday rolls around, I'm like, I'm too old. I don't know why I do this to myself. I'm too old. I gotta grow up and quit doing this. And the next trip rolls around, I'm just as fired up as I can be to act up, cut up, do whatever. So
I
See,
remember.
that's what like your conscience wants you to say, and society maybe says like, why do I do this? I just need to grow up and not. But like honestly, like the good Lord tells us to have the spirit of a child, and I think for a lot of us men, like we put too many boys in circles and say, learn this, learn that, instead of going out into the yard and dig up earthworms and just letting them be boys. And to a certain extent, like whether you're 12 or 40, like I said, like you still got to have this kind of childhood wonderment about you. And to have things that excite you in that way, I don't think anybody, I know I won't, should ever apologize for that. If you still get excited about something in that way, then that's something that you should not just like enjoy, but lean into. Find those things, and that goes for everyone, whether that's mountain climbing or whether that's going to the range and just shooting clays or your 9mm. Like find the things that excite you to get up in the morning, and don't just enjoy them and not apologize for them, but lean into them, man. This life, it is not a dress rehearsal. This is the only one. And so, like just embrace those loves and passions. Find a way to be respectful to others like family while you go pursue them. Make sure you're 100 here and 100 there when those times comes. But I love that, man. I love that for you, that you still have that excitement. I know it's hard for me to go to sleep the day before I go duck hunting. And that doesn't matter where I'm in the beginning of the season or at the end of the season. I'm pumped to get there, and I hope I never lose it.
Yeah, I literally was thinking about that this morning I've got a 5-month-old lab at the house, and you know how that goes. I mean, it's a pain. There's so much that you're dealing with, and you're like, just settle down, just chill. But then I was thinking about this morning, I was like, if I could get that excited about just life, just every day, just want to run around and play, that I shouldn't even though he's a dog, like I shouldn't hope he just chills out and sits around. He's enjoying life as it is. So
I'm sure you were like that as a little boy. Just like that 5-month-old is like what equivalent to a 5-year-old right now. Just think about that. What you were like at 5.
Yeah.
I bet you.
And I wish I was still like that. I wish I still had that much energy and excitement about stuff. That's kind of
you and that dog ain't too far off.
No. Well, man, as far as we mentioned it right when we got on here that teal season will be here before we know it, and I know you said you're out on teal season, but and your whole fall will probably be pretty occupied by your new baby. But do you have any big plans as far as the show goes, or just hunting in general goes for this year?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to make it to Arkansas for probably 4 or 5 days and do some hunts in the timber. We'll see what season 4 kind of brings. I mean, my whole plan is to shoot a season 4. There's a couple cards that have to fall to make sure that happens or doesn't. So should be some exciting things for season 4 in terms of where we're hunting. May start to take it out of Louisiana just for a couple episodes to kind of explore what other parts of the country would look like in their duck camps and their waterfowl seasons. I'm excited about that because I love shooting duck camp dinners, but it does keep me in Louisiana quite a bit. When I do have this kind of wanderlust when it comes to duck hunting. Like I want to know how others do it in the snow. I've actually never hunted in the snow. What would that be like in a lay down blind, in 6 inches of snow in a really ripping north wind? I'd love to experience it, as miserable as that might be. I think as I'm still a little early because until I figure out what duck camp dinners I've left a lot of my November, December, and January pretty open. So we'll see. We'll see about that. I got a busy October in terms of some of my other commitments to like I cook at the American Royal in Kansas City. The Shin Gear Film Festival is in Memphis this year in October. I work with a company called Brio Fire Pits, who has their big gathering in October. So although I'm taking September off, I'm in 4 different cities in October. And then I'm leaving November, December, and January, pretty open-ended to see what happens with filming and other stuff. But, my regular stuff, Louisiana, Arkansas, should be happening. But I think there might be some special stuff kind of in some new places this year.
Yeah. Well, that'd be cool because just like we talked about earlier, everybody has that same – their camp means something to them, and they have their cooking that they do at their camp, and being able to get out and y'all bring that to YouTube or to Waypoint or wherever would be, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned a second ago, and this is completely a personal question because I just want to know because I'm thinking about going, but the Shin Gear Film Festival, worth the drive? Memphis is about 4 hours from us, so.
Yeah, well, if it's 4 hours, yes, it's 100% worth the drive. It's 100% worth the fly. If you were even coming from farther, it's just a really great gathering of waterfowl enthusiasts. There'll be, they did a really, for year one last year, so I can only speak to year one, the only year they did a really great job of programming it in a way that just felt special for the whole day. It's just one day, so not a huge, last year was just one day, and I have to go back and make sure this year would be just one day. But, a lot of good vendors for you to kind of check out in terms of like how the Delta Waterfowl Expo and different hunting expos are. Not as big in terms of vendors, but a good core group of waterfowl specific vendors there. Obviously, the whole Shin Gear setup, and then just a lot of the documentaries, the movies, the shows, and then the concerts, the auctions. They just did a really good job. And if you get some good weather in October in Memphis and it's all outside, and it's at that amphitheater, just a really cool scene. Plus, you get some of that Memphis barbecue the next day, which I happen to love. I happen to love Payne's barbecue in Memphis. I make it a point to go there at least once, if not twice, and get some ribs. That for me is worth a 4-hour drive. I'm salivating, but no, it's a cool spot, man. And we'll be cooking there. I'll be me, Jay, and Junior will be set up on the side. We'll be even boiling shrimp or throwing things on the grill. We like to just kind of bring food wherever we go and just cook. We just find that where food gets cooked, people gather, and we've seen that all our lives in kitchens in Louisiana. We see it in everywhere we go. We start cooking, people gather, we're drinking beers and cutting up and having fun, and it just makes for a good scene all around.
Yeah. Well, I hate to take up too much more of your time, but Austin, do you have anything else?
Man, I could sit here and talk about this kind of stuff all day, but yeah. No, I don't think so. Hey, you're for like boudin recipes and stuff like that you go on that. Like that kind of stuff is all on the website, right? That's where you put that kind of thing.
Yeah, you should actually go check out, for everybody listening here, if you're interested in Cajun cooking, go out, check out Louisiana Cooking YouTube channel. It's Louisiana, whole spell out the state, and then cooking, COOKIN. All right, leave the G off. And you'll see a bunch of recipes with me up there, and we're going to be doing more of that. Like I said, I'm the editor at large. I do a lot of writing for him. I also do a lot of YouTube stuff for him. And that's a lot of really more technical Cajun cooking, stand and stirs, some entertainment purposes, of course, on myself there. But there's a great boudin recipe for boudin balls that I put on that website. And it uses pork butt, which would typically what we would use for boudin. But if I've made this recipe with ducks, I've made it with speckled belly geese, I've made it with deer. You just take out the pork element, put in X wild game, and you should be able to pretty much nail that recipe with that.
I want to try it with deer this year. When I heard you say that on one of the episodes, that was one of the things I wanted to ask about, because I do want to try that with deer this year.
Yeah. The only time I've actually made it with deer, I actually use deer liver as well.
I said, well, I think you said that maybe.
Yeah, which is, it turned out really good. I mean, it's going to be a dark boudin,
Right.
using a deer hind
Yep.
leg typically, or a
Mhm.
front shoulder roast or something like that. And then the liver will give you a dark boudin, but look, man, they're good. It's a great utilization, and they freeze well. So boudin freezes really well. If you want to make it into links, it freezes really well. If you want to that into a loose boudin, meaning not in links, and just put it in a cryovac, it does great for boudin patties or boudin balls, in that way. So, like, I love just taking loose boudin, crisping it up in a pan, then cracking eggs into it. Like, that's one of my favorite things to do, um, especially at the camp. It just kind of spreads that egg out a little bit more, especially if you got a couple handfuls of hungry hunters.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm gonna give that a shot this year.
Yeah, I love me some boudin. I've never made it, but
Good stuff.
It's good.
Good
Yes,
stuff.
it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. Well, Jean Paul, man, I really appreciate you coming on. If you got any last thoughts that you want to mention or anything like that.
Look, I would just say, if you want to follow along with what I'm doing in my journey, both duck camp dinners and not, you can catch me at Chef Jean_Paul on Instagram. Like I said, you can see a number of my videos, cooking videos on the YouTube, Louisiana Cooking's YouTube channel. And then just stay tuned for more episodes on Waypoint TV and Split Read YouTube. And as soon as I have some announcements on season 4, I'll let folks know.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to. I probably should have asked this a long time ago, but how often are the episodes for season 3 going to come out? When do we get to see the episode 2?
So there'll be next Sunday. It'll premiere. Episode 2 will premiere on Waypoint TV at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you can see that we're going to have 6 episodes for season 3, all 44 minutes long, and they'll release once a week every Sunday. So we one down, one in the can. You got 5 more to go.
All right.
Well, keep doing what you're doing.
Okay. Absolutely. Well, we sure appreciate it, man. Good luck. Good luck with the new baby coming up. I know that's quite the undertaking. So
we'll see. Yeah, yep. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate y'all's time and giving me a platform to talk about the things that I love, and would love to get y'all in a duck blind one day, maybe.
Hey, man, you tell us when, and we'll be there. Or you don't even have to put me in a duck blind. Just take me to a camp with a little food and a little cold beer, and I will be just right.
You and me both, bro. All right,
man. Well, we'll see you later.
So, thanks, guys. Peace.
See ya.